In my previous video about Bhagat Singh's ideology, I broadly mentioned socialism, secularism, and internationalism. Now, this video took me a while to film and also quite a bit of delay, so my sincere apologies for the same. In today's video, I'll be focusing on socialism. Now, when we think about socialism or socialists in general, we describe it as a system or condition of society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the central government. In terms of distribution of wealth, which is the fundamental of socialism as some might call it, that's quite the right definition. But to understand more about it, we have to go back in time and understand its origins. You see, up until the late 18th century and most of ancient and medieval history was governed under the feudal system, which is where power was accumulated by a minor fraction of the society, which is the monarchs, and imposed upon the working class. Most of the time, this condition was highly exploiting, and the working class suffered tremendously. In these times, the rulers and the working class had an enormous difference in freedom and wealth. Now, such examples can be seen throughout history, but one of the prominent ones is the French Revolution, where because of the clergy and nobility, the working class was exploited, and which also led to the revolution. This brought out the ideas of liberty and fraternity, which we'll get to later, but from here also arose the ideas of socialism. The fundamentals of socialism, that is to reward people on the basis of their contribution, philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle have given us thoughts revolving around the purpose of things, or as they call it, the essence to life. While these ideas of ancient philosophers led to the formation of the principles of socialism, chronologically speaking, we see more thinkers and philosophers emerge in the late 18th century proposing the ideas of socialism. During the Age of Enlightenment, philosophers such as Rousseau, Saint Simon, and Robert Owen gave us a more descriptive idea regarding the foundation of socialism. Robert Owen, a Welsh social reformer, wrote that the government should establish more rational plans for the education and general formation of the characters of their subject. By this, he meant that children should be educated from an early age, and this should be a basic necessity to all. His idea was that a working class person's misery or success should not be characterized as their own fault or gain, which contradicts the individualism ideas of liberalism. Followers of Owen in the early 19th century wrote more about the ideals of socialism, and the word socialism is said to be first coined by Pierre Leroux in 1832. The word socialism finds its root from the Latin word sociare, which means to share. Then in the mid-1800s, one philosopher rose out to be later regarded as the father of socialism, which of course is Karl Marx. Marx easily dominated socialism through his ideas and writings. What he did was, he combined the ideas of socialism arising from France and England at the time and compiled it with the philosophy of German philosopher Georg Hegel. Unlike Hegel, Marx was heavily influenced by the practicality of socialism, witnessing the Industrial Revolution. He based his theory of socialism in matter and material conditions, which can be a result of his influence through Darwin. Marx's theory tells us that everything stems from material conditions, which creates capitalism. From there we derive our society. In a nutshell, as the material conditions change, this society evolves with them. Karl Marx strongly opposed capitalism and saw it as a class conflict between upper and lower classes. Marx, in his Communist Manifesto, along with Friedrich Engels, wrote that the history of all existing society is the history of class struggles. As seen in the French Revolution, the emerging middle class overthrew the monarchy and ends the feudal system. According to this theory, when one class wins a social struggle, a new society is created. From here, we learn the terms bourgeoisie, the greedy industry owners, and the proletariat, the property-less working class. He criticized the idea of private property ownership, which, in terms of socialism, he meant the people who owned industries, and believed that the wealth should be divided equally. Later in his writings, he explains that the way to achieve this is by a revolution through the working class, which is also known as revolutionary socialism. Now, socialism is broadly divided into four categories, but the two main ones are utopian socialism and revolutionary socialism, which in a more radical sense is also known as communism. Now, with this, we understand the main ideals of socialism, which is an economic system where each individual is given an equal share of the four factors of economic production, that is, labor, entrepreneurship, capital, goods, and resources. In socialism, economic output and rewards are distributed according to each individual's ability and level of contribution. Now, what is communism and how is it different from socialism? In simple terms, communism is a subset of socialism, which is also known as revolutionary socialism. But here, the central government allocates resources and provides people all the basic necessities such as food, housing, education, and healthcare in their own terms. The main difference is that in socialism, people will be rewarded accordingly and fairly on the basis of individual contribution. While in communism, central government will be providing people with facilities and resources which they think are necessary and needed to its citizens. Another difference is that under socialism, people can own private property but not run industries, while in communism, all private property is communally owned. Coming back to Bhagat Singh, we know that he was heavily influenced by Marx, Lenin, and Leo Trotsky, and is known to be a socialist revolutionary. Not till now we have known what socialism really is and its origins. So let us know, why is Bhagat Singh known to be a socialist revolutionary? He came to socialism and Marxism in search of an ideology for reasons to oppose religion rights and also to oppose the growing capitalism imperialism at the time. At the Dwarkadas Library, he read Marxist literature intensively and proposed adding socialist to the HRA organization name in 1928, later to be known as HSRA, that is Hindustan Socialist Republican Association. Historian Chaman Lal tells us that before HRA became HSRA, Bhagat Singh trained himself in the mass organization work, the Navjivan Bharat Sabha, created on the pattern of Young Italy and inspired by Giuseppe Mazzini and Garibaldi. Bhagat Singh also worked as a part of the editorial staff Kirti, which was a journal set up at the ideas of Lenin and revolutionary socialism. Later followed the assembly bombing case in 1929. The revolutionary program of the HSRA had the closest affinity to the revolutionary socialists.